so thoughtful. You're so thoughtful, you're so you like it too.
Hello and welcome to Every Takes, where you get to talk about a specific topic with a cool, awesome friend. And today's topic is pretty interesting, but not as interesting as my friend. Super awesome wife, mom, a financial expert, and someone that knows a lot about a lot. SeaAphrodite, thanks for coming to the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
And this one is really interesting to me. The subject we're talking about today is forced bi and cuckolding, and yeah, tell me all about it.
It's so funny. So I know you put them together, but they are slightly different.
Right.
And when people reach out to me to play, I sort of talk to them about what they're really after. So cuckolding, I think, is often best experienced in the context of a committed relationship where you have a female partner that you care for very much and you want to see her happy and taken care of. And you feel that you can't do that for her for whatever reason. You don't have the stamina, you don't have the size, you don't have the capability. And so you want to see her pleased by others, or maybe in addition to you. But there's obviously the element of sort of cuck and hot wife versus like stag and vixen. And a stag is a male partner who can please her just fine, but they just want additional people, more fun, and he wants to participate equally. A cuck often will be watching, right? Because he's sort of like not punished, but sort of chastened, right? Because he can't do it. And so someone else is stepping in for him. But he's allowing that to happen. He's supporting that happening because he loves her so much and he wants her to be taken care of, even if it's by proxy, by someone else and not by him. That's a really selfless act. It's a really big act, for a male, right? To sort of subsume his own ego and sort of do what's better for her. There's obviously a deliciousness to it. There's kind of this delicious element of sort of feeling inferior. Like it's kind of, I don't know, like it's like, it's an embarrassment, but it can be kind of yummy, right? And then you're also watching porn, right? You're watching live porn. You're watching your partner, who you obviously are attracted to, be serviced by others, being used by others. So for some men that's a huge turn on. Some men are very jealous and obviously wouldn't be able to watch that. But for some men it's very much a turn on, and that could be both for a cuckold male or a stag. In all those contexts, the actual kind of male on male contact is not a given. You can have a stag partner with a vixen, partner, and they have, like gangbangs for her, or threesomes or foursomes or whatever, where the males are taking care of her, but they're not interacting with each other. And you can certainly have a cuck who is just watching his wife or his partner with bulls, and then he's cleaning up their cum, or he's doing something else to facilitate, but he's not actually directly interacting with them. That next stage of cuckolding is where things become interesting for me, where I can kind of insert myself. I'm not like a primary partner, but you can sort of act out some of the motions around it, where the person is feeling like they want to be humiliated or degraded or feel inferior as a male, for not being as sexually desirable. And it's to the point where they're going to actually show how sort of inferior they are by agreeing to service the other male directly. Let's say to suck his cock, or to compare, like you're a very small cock and he has a very big cock, and so you're the one who has to service him, that kind of thing. I don't personally like to bottom to almost anybody, and so the idea of sort of bulls coming in to quote fuck me, and then some cuck who's sort of watching this on my behalf, is not really a construct that works for me. But once there's that male on male interaction, then I can be there as the kind of like the glue, the facilitation.
Right.
And that's where you start to explore the forced bi. So you can have a forced bi element in cuckolding, and then you can also have forced bi without the cuckolding element, where there's just the exploration of fantasy that sort of takes on this potentially taboo activity of male on male interaction. I say, like, with a laugh, potentially taboo, because clearly there's lots of gay men who are very happy, and bisexual men who are very happy, and have no problem with male on male interaction, and don't see it as in any way humiliating or degrading or taboo or whatever. They're perfectly happy doing it, and we support them and empower them, right? So I don't want to make it sound like any kind of male on male interaction is in any way inherently taboo or humiliating or degrading or whatever. subservient. It's just the construct of forced bi specifically, where it's not because, the man is just happily attracted to other men and he wants to do this and the other man wants to do it too and they're just having great sex and having fun.
Mm.
There's this element of being forced or coerced or kind of facilitated, right? Nothing is really forced, to be clear. Everything is consensual. But this kind of idea of doing it for a woman because she wants to see it, because she's asking you to do it, because it turns her on, because you want to humiliate yourself in front of her. That element is what adds the femdom component, right?
Right. That's where you come in.
That's where I come in. That's where I can exist.
Wow.
So it is super hot. I mean, I love watching men together. I watch porn of men together, just
Yeah.
like men watch porn of women together. Like it's just
Mhm.
very hot, very hot. Men are very primal, they're very intense, they're very unemotional a lot of the times, they're very physical. It's super, super sexy, especially if the men are good looking. Like it's very, very hot. And there's obviously very different dynamics to it. You can have two very masculine males who are doing this, both very hung, doing this with each other in a
Mhm.
versatile way where they're both sucking each other off, they're both topping and bottoming. You can have a very unequal dynamic where you have like a male who is more feminized. He's a sissy. He's submissive. You dress him up in a more feminine way, and then he's being sort of used by a more masculine, dominant male.
Mhm.
Some of this can be race based, as we've talked about, right, in prior pods, where you have, let's say, a white bottom and a top who's a person of color. You can have it the other way. I've had
Yeah.
bottoms who are black, for example, who specifically are interested in sort of very hung white men. You have age dynamics, where you have sort of a daddy, older, and a boy, younger, younger, older. So there's all these different variations of what people want to explore.
Mhm.
And that's something I talk to people about. Like, what is it that turns you on? Like, what is the fantasy that you have, right? Is like, what kind of person are you being forced to do things with? And what kind of things are you being forced to do with them? There's
Mm.
everything from like kissing, which is very intimate, to sort of giving oral, getting oral, and then obviously top, anal sex. And it's shocking how different people take this. Like some people, like I could never kiss a man ever, but I'm happy to just take it in the ass, right? Because it's not any different than a dildo. It's just like physical pleasure.
Right.
Or there's somebody who's like, I could never have anybody penetrate me, but I love to suck dick, right? Like, so like everybody takes it differently, what is sort of right for them. And then part of my role as a femdom over time is to push the boundary. So I've had people who start with me who sort of are a little curious and they're willing to do this or that, but over time it just kind of escalates, right? And sometimes it's a period of
Right.
years. And over a period of years, they're doing things they never would imagine doing, but it turns them on tremendously, so they keep doing it. Size, obviously the worship of a very big dick is a big component of it. So if somebody is not hung and he's sort of like servicing somebody who is very hung, again, there's like a whole thing that you work through that, right? A superior male versus an inferior male. It's a way to work through that sort of insecurity. Some men really are looking to be like truly like feminized, again, where they're going down a path not just to cross-dressing or sissification, but they really want to feel like more femme. And
Mhm.
sometimes they're taking steps, beyond that from a gender perspective, right, to kind of nuance their gender, whether that's their non-binary or something else. So, again, there's a huge variation. It's super fun to explore. There has to be a room for me there because, like I said, if there's just two men who are super attracted to each other and just want to have sex, maybe I could be part of it just for fun too, like part of their dynamic, but it's a bit different than where I'm directing it. And a little
Right.
bit of resistance is also nice in the sense of this forced element where like it's kind of like I don't really want to do this. I mean, I do really want to do this, but I'm going to say that I don't really want to do this,
Mhm.
but I'm doing it for you because you, Domina, are so desirable and attractive that if you allow me to, service you to lick your pussy, but first I have to suck this dick to get to you, then I'm willing to do this thing that I don't really want to do because, you turn me on so much. Like that's a very fun construct. That's very flattering.
Mm.
And so people like that. I think ultimately, and I know you haven't asked the question yet, so I'm sorry, but this is a topic that I'm passionate about. I
Right.
think ultimately, there's kind of an element of me allowing something to happen that somebody wants to do but they feel uncomfortable doing on their own, again because of some societal pressure, the way that they are identifying themselves. Like, I don't want to be gay, but like if I'm doing it for this woman, then it's like giving permission
Mm,
for a fantasy that somebody clearly wants to live out, but they haven't been able to get there themselves, and they need kind of permission to do it. And you're giving that permission, you're creating that air cover, right? You're giving them that comfort, that air cover, like, hey, don't worry. You're doing it for me. You're doing it because I asked you to. You're doing it because I'm forcing it, because I want to see it. And so you get to experience the physical act that you've actually been wanting to do, but
hmm.
without the kind of mental burden of thinking that you are the one who chose it. Well, although
Right.
of course you did choose it. But but again, this is kind of well, like anything else, right? You're always the decision maker.
Hmm.
But it's fun and exciting to explore dynamics where you get to like let go of that decision making and let someone else sort of do something for you, and kind of force you to do something.
Hmm.
And obviously we've talked about that in many other contexts, and this is one of them.
Yeah, no, this is a really interesting one, especially where you are the facilitator, right? You're like the ring, circus. You're running the circus, and everything that is happening, it's happening because of your say so. Even though, like, of course, consent is involved and stuff, but it still comes down to it being in your sphere of power.
Yes.
Beautiful. Oh man, this is one of those topics again. I feel is like so many layers to it, but
It
I'll
does.
I'll, I'll, I'll ask one question though. Is it easier if they ask for it, or do you find you're the one that introduces it? Like I guess the first buy part.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point in my sort of fet journey, because my profile is so extensive, um, it's people know when they reach out to me that this is going to be, like almost an expectation for me. And I kind of use it as a triage. There are
Oh
very, very
right.
few men that I'm going to accept as playmates without it. There's so many people out there who would like to play. And the vast majority of them would like to play one on one and would like to be sort of straight, one on one, submitting to a beautiful woman, right? Like me or any other femdom. And so I cannot keep up with that level of demand.
Hmm.
I do make exceptions, but they're very selfish exceptions. I mean, they're like incredibly, incredibly beautiful people, you know?
Mm.
And so I sort of say, like, if you're super young and gorgeous and I like just, perfect body, I can show you off as kind of a conquest, like a trophy,
Mm.
then maybe you get the one on one, and I'm not going to force you to do this thing. But for most people, just because the volume of demand and the lack of supply, it is easier for me to not do one on one, but to have some group dynamics, where I can sort of play with two or three people at a time, do different things. I love, again, kind of group play bondage, group play impact, group play everything, right? I mean, who doesn't want to be worshipped by three people at the same time? I have two breasts and a pussy, right? So three mouths is significantly better than two or one, right? And
Mm.
so I like people who are able to be in the room with other submissives, right? Or if you have a bull and a sub, I like that. It just gives me more like leeway to play. I can create more stuff. It's more fun. I can be more creative. So people will reach out to me, usually having read my profile, I hope, and will say things like, I've never done it before, but I'm curious, or I'm in particular curious about serving like a BBC, or I've always had this fantasy. So it's a range of kind of very resistant, but like willing, but the, versus like I'm very eager. I really really want to try this, and I don't necessarily have a bias towards one or the other. I think that I really want to try this is kind of hot too.
Mm.
If somebody's already done it a ton, then I mean, there's less room for me, as I said, right? I'm not trying to be like, unsupportive, but if somebody says, "Oh, I'm bisexual and I do it all the time," then I'm like, "Well, okay, then keep doing it, right? Like you don't need me." So I do prefer the first time
Right.
kind of experiences. So first time with another man, very exciting for me. Um, and whether you're coming at that first time going, I've been dreaming about it for like years, I'm desperate to try it, versus I am really reticent. but I think I'm ready to try it for you.
Mm-hmm.
I can like both of those things. I can enjoy both those things. And it's a lot of times I will pair people accordingly. So if I have two people who are like very, very reticent,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that can be hard, or sometimes it can be great. They
Mm-hmm.
feel like a commonality between themselves. They're both nervous, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can have one very experienced one and one very inexperienced one. The experienced one can be kind of a partner to me. Like, let's say the older daddy, and we're both
Mm-hmm.
sort of using the younger boy. That can be a very good dynamic. If you have two that are very eager, they both are raring to go. That can be super hot. Like they're ready. Man, it's like you let them out of the gate, they're running. So all of those can be really exciting. And again, because I don't want to get bored either. You know, I play a bunch, and I'm always looking for kind of stimulation and excitement.
Mm-hmm.
So any of those constructs can work for me. Just depends on the people and kind of how I put the scene together.
Wow. Wow. Very eye-opening, very, very enlightening, and it's definitely something you're passionate about. So we should
I
talk
am.
about this
I am.
again.
I don't know why, but I am. It's like, and this is like you hear a lot of what I talk about is kind of like some selfless things, and then some
Yes.
very selfish things. And this
Yes.
one is a selfish one.
Yeah, I know.
It's
This
hot.
is
It's hot.
Thanks, SeaAphrodite. This was interesting.
Yeah.
So thoughtful, you're so thoughtful. You're so thoughtful, you're so. You're so. You like it too.